All right, so I don't know if this is working, but I'm giving it a shot, trying something new here. Welcome to TFL Classics. My name is Tommy Micah. This is my tiny sliver of the YouTube world. And here at TFL Classics, we talk everything classic cars. And today we are going to talk about whatever you want to talk about. So feel free to leave a comment below in the live chat room. Is the sound good? I don't know, let me know. I'm literally in my basement right now, but we are going to play with some stuff, we're going to build some stuff, and we're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about. So, for the 70 of you watching, thank you for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it, and we're just going to have a conversation. So, let me know what you want to talk about in the comment section below, and we'll do it. So what we have in front of me today is one of my childhood hobbies, and it's one of the things that I really fell in love with as a kid, and that of course is remote control cars. And in my opinion, you are never too old to be into RC cars. So today we are going to build an RC car, we're going to talk about this world, and we're going to talk about whatever you want to. So let's get right into it. So the world of RC cars is kind of just like the world of real cars, actually. There are many different configurations, many different sizes, many different types, and these are some of the ones I've collected over the course of 10 years. I started in 2007. And if you want an interesting, fun hobby, but don't want to spend thousands of dollars and don't need the garage space of having to build a real car or motorcycle, this is a great way to do it because you get the same kind of experience with building an RC car as you would with a real car, except instead of having to crawl underneath differentials, you can do it in microscopic size, and I think it's just as fun in a lot of ways. So let's talk about what we are going to be building. Now, here at TFL Classics, we like to talk about everything classic cars. It's my passion. It truly is the thing I'm most interested in. So we're of course going to build a classic RC car, and this is it. So this is called the Tamiya Grasshopper, and this is one of the most iconic, one of the most classic RC cars out there. Now, Tamiya is a Japanese company that's been around for decades and decades. Since pre-war, actually, they've been building models, and this is one of their early entrants into the RC world. This car actually dates back to the early 1980s, and a lot of you guys out there who were kids in the 80s may remember this as being one of the classic, iconic kit cars from that era, and it's a great way to get into RC hobbying, getting into RC construction as well. You don't need anything special. You just need a couple hours here and there, and you build it. So let's get right into it, and I'll show you what's going on here. So just like real cars, RC cars come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And this one, oh, come on, Micah. And this one is about as kind of pokey and easy to do as they come. So if you think of RC cars as being the Walmart or Target specials, well, you're going to be quite surprised because some of the RC cars, like this new stuff, will go 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, even 100 miles an hour. And I'll show you how they work. We can get into some of the specifics, but they really do work similar to full-size cars. I mean, it's all very similar, and I know you're probably thinking this is kind of a little bit of a dorky hobby, and you may be right, but it is actually a great way to keep your skills in shape, and if you're like me and have no skills in terms of technical skills, it's a great way to have fun and still feel like you're challenging yourself. So, I'll show you what we got in here. Now, back in the early 1980s, it was kind of a different world. Hobby-grade RC cars weren't really a thing. So this is the best you could do if you were on a budget. And much like me, I am still on a budget. So let's see what we've got in here. First of all, this is actually a remake of the car from the 1980s. So it's all very retro. It's all very similar to how it would have been way back when. And I just love that. I mean, if you're into classic cars, to me it doesn't get much better because this is pretty much what it would have looked like as a kid back in 1983, 1984. How cool is that? How often do you get to see that? So the Grasshopper is a 1/10 scale RC high-performance off-road racer. I wouldn't go that far, but it is going to be fun to build, and we can show you what it's like when we're done. So right here, we've got a combination of the chassis as well as the body. And this is really kind of stiff ABS plastic you see here on the body. And then it's a similar material here on the chassis itself. Now, on the newer stuff, it's actually set up really pretty differently. So this is one of the most popular RC cars on the market. This is called a Traxxas Slash. It's a short course racer, so it's a scale version of what you'd see jumping across these short course tracks. They come in many different configurations, but how they work is the body on the new stuff is Lexan, so it's super flexible. So when you're taking jumps at 30, 35 miles an hour, you're not gonna just destroy the body. It'll flex and move out of the way, and then you can paint these however you want. It's a really fun way to do that. And then here actually is the backbone of the vehicle. So once again, you have a chassis, rigid chassis. You also have 4-corner independent suspension here. And just like here, I'll try to zoom in just a little bit. Just like some of the more full-size vehicles you may be used to, the shock absorbers are actually oil-filled. So there's various spring rates depending on how you want the vehicle to perform. And it's all very high-tech stuff, actually. Then, of course, you've got your motor in the rear, which feeds an open differential in this case. And you can change out gearing to make it go faster or slower, or accelerate faster or slower. You can change wheels and tires, put in bigger motors, put in bigger batteries, all sorts of fun stuff like that. So, this is a funny comment, actually. NLPNT says, I was a kid in 83 and 84. If I could have gotten a Tamiya RC, it would have been the Subaru Brat. I actually have a Brat. So the Brat was a pretty wild model back in the day because you could get it with this super shiny body. This is what it looked like. And also, like I mentioned, they used to be really stiff plastic. So when you crashed them, things actually broke. And this is a super great example. So my actual mounting towers have broken through this one. I've got a cracked windshield, but you know, it's all part of the fun. So this is the Grasshopper. These are the bones. And then we can go into what the kit comes with. So you'll notice right off the bat, we've got what looks to be some suspension members. A lot of these more modern vehicles are double wishbone suspension with oil-filled shocks. This is about as simple as it gets. So you have single wishbone suspension, and then of course you just have normal springs. So it's a real bouncy kind of ride when you're driving it. But you know, you've got cool stuff. Like check this out. You've got an old school set of, they're almost like wagon wheels type wheels. So that's what they look like. And then they're actually a beadlock design that bolt on to these old school buggy tires. So these are like a sand paddle designed tire. Check that out. So later on in the video, we'll have to bolt that all together. So we've got the body, we've got the actual chassis. Looks like we have our suspension components and some of our spring components. This is a fun touch. This actually is driver. So some of these early models had drivers that you could build and paint. And then more stuff. This has a solid rear axle. It's actually a transaxle technically because it incorporates the motor into the actual transmission and rear axle. And then this right here is one of the electronics that the car comes with. And then we've got more boxes. The nice thing about these old Tamiyas is they're super organized, really easy to build. That right there is going to be your front bumper. Then we've got the little gears that go in the transmission. You've got all sorts of grease. These are your actual springs. Bushings, you can buy bearing kits for these if you want them. A bunch of different part bags. Here is your little itty bitty motor that comes with the kit. And then, perhaps most importantly, you're gonna need this, which is your Grasshopper 1/10 scale RC high performance off-road racer manual. And Tamiya does a fantastic job of actually labeling what goes where and how it all assembles. So let's talk about pricing. Now, the RC cars you'll find at like your local Target or Walmart, maybe $20, $30, so go 2 or 3 miles an hour. And then once you get into the hobby grade, this is kind of the entry level of the hobby grade. This kit from Hobbytown USA cost me $132. You have to buy some extra bits we'll talk about in a sec, but it can go up from there. I mean, in some cases, these kits cost $1,000. When it's all said and done, if you want a super high performance racer that you want to be competitive with, because there are actually off-road racing classes for different types of vehicles. I mean, this is a really pretty big world. If it's something you want to get into, great. And the Grasshopper is a great way to do it if you want to build it yourself. Now, most vehicles you'll find today are going to be like this low-C rock crawler, and that they're ready to run. So you stick a battery in it and off you go. They come with a controller. But back in the day, you had to assemble it yourself, and I think that's a great way to learn and a great way to do it. So this is everything that the Tamiya kit comes with, but you're actually going to need a couple more things. So let me reorganize. So for $132 in terms of electronics, you get this little guy, which is your Type 380 motor. That'll propel you to a whopping 15 miles an hour. Which is, trust me, plenty more than you actually need with this car. You also get something called an ESC, or electronic speed control. So when you apply throttle with your controller, this is what sends power to the little motor. If you put a lot of throttle, it sends a lot of power. A little bit of throttle sends just a little bit of power. So that's great, that's included, because a lot of the time these two things can be really expensive if you're building more of a pro grade kit. But you're going to need some other stuff. You're going to need to get yourself a controller and a receiver. So this is what actually drives the little car, and then when you send a signal with your transmitter, it is received by the receiver, and then all your electronics plug into the receiver, so your speed control, and then also, where is it? Got it somewhere around here. It would be helpful if I was organized. You're going to need something called I'll find it in a sec, a steering servo. So a servo is essentially a little itty-bitty motor. That's what it looks like. It's that little blue thing right there. And inside this little box is a little motor that actually allows the vehicle to turn. So you're going to need a steering servo. And if you actually go out and buy one of these kits, don't get caught up in the weeds, because people will try to sell you crazy expensive steering servos that are, you know, $80, $90, $100, $200. Just get the cheapest one you can find, because this is not a high-performance model. It's not going to matter. So you're also going to need something like this. This is a battery. So it doesn't come with the battery. When I started this in 2006 and 7, these were super expensive for anything worthwhile. Now you can pick up a good one for, I don't know, $15, $20 for this kit. That's all you really need. And then you're also going to need a charger. Chargers, once again, can be found online for $15 or $20. So all in, if you want to go the super cheap route, you could probably get all this stuff for $170 total. If you actually want a vehicle that performs, go buy yourself a Traxxas Slash. That'll be like $250. It will come with everything ready to go. But this is the more fun way to do it, in my opinion. Okay, cool. So I think we went over all the basics. Let's talk about cars then, I guess, if you want. I mean, I assume that's why you're here. So let's see what you're saying in the comment sections. Mike Provolone, hey, how's it going? Thanks for watching. Any updates from Mike Curtis? No, I haven't actually heard from him for a while. He left for San Francisco. He wanted to pursue new interests, so I think he has a job out there now. I'm not quite sure what he's doing. He's actually from the West Coast originally. He's from Seattle. Let's see, Joey's Cleaning Lady. Hi there. Thanks for watching. Joey's Cleaning Lady is a huge watcher of a lot of our stuff. Kyosho, that's a great question. Kyosho's another classic Japanese RC car maker. Buy RTR next time. Yeah, it's a great way to get things done fast. Blackfoot is a gold standard of old school RC. That's a good one too. I had if you're in an old school RC, I had a Tamiya lunchbox. I've had, I haven't had a Frog yet, but I've had a Hot Shot. I've had a lot of their older road stuff, and then in the new world, I've had way too many of these at recreation kits, and you can get some really cool ones. So like I have an old Unimog kit that I'm working on right now, an old Volkswagen, because I've got an old Volkswagen. Let's see, Joseph Whiskey Beal. I saw a RC Jeep Cherokee rock crawler on Facebook once, Far Cry from Nico Big Bubba I had in the 90s. Yeah, it's amazing what they'll do. I mean, check out this RC rock crawler right here. I mean, the amount of suspension travel, the amount of actual flex it will have is truly incredible. And then this one, of course, has fully locked differentials. We even have one, it's called the Traxxas TRX4. It's a scale model, so it looks just like a Land Rover Defender. It's got front and rear locking differentials you can do from the controller. It has a high range, it has a low range, it is just everything you could ever need. So, let's get into classic car talk. Puffy 83 USA, how are the 325 and 300D doing? That's a great question. They're doing really well. So the 300D is, in case you don't know, my Mercedes. It's a 1982 300 diesel sedan, and I bought it kind of at the beginning of this year, and I've been driving it a pretty decent amount. It's in really good condition, and I get scared about driving it in the rain, so I don't drive it as much as I'd probably like to. But I put about $500 into it, getting some stuff fixed. So it needed an oil change. It needed a valve adjustment, which is actually a pretty common thing you'll find on a lot of these old Mercedes diesels. What else did it need? I needed a bunch of other kind of little odds and ends here. So I put about $500 into it, and it's running really well. I also had to get the transmission adjusted because it was shifting too hard. But yeah, I love that car. I really, truly, I think it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite car of all times, just because it's got so much quality built in to every aspect of the vehicle. I mean, not even the door closed, but the interior materials are just incredible. And it's the only vehicle I've driven, pre-1985 that I'm never worried about ever starting. I mean, 37 years later, you just get into it, glow the plugs, start it up, and it will start each and every time without fail, which is awesome. And it's super smooth, and it's super comfortable. I just love it. It's also pretty safe. It's one of my kind of, I think it's a realistic concern, nowadays on the road, is that, let's be real, even the safest of classic cars in the 70s and 80s are horrendously unsafe by modern standards. And you guys know this better than I do, but you'll see people driving down the road, texting, talking on their phone, eating breakfast, looking in the mirror. I mean, there's just so much distraction on the road that driving a classic car is actually, it's kind of, in my opinion, a pretty hazardous thing now, which is a shame because, for example, I just bought the company's 1971 Beetle because I just loved it so much. So I bought it off the company for $4,000. And I love the car, and it runs nicely and it drives nicely, but you kind of have to, in my opinion, drive it like a motorcycle, because with all the distraction around and all the people doing stupid stuff at stoplights and not paying attention, like if you get hit in a 1971 Beetle at any kind of reasonable speed, you're not going to win. I mean, there's no crumple zones, there's no airbags, of course, there's barely shoulder belts. I had to put shoulder belts in mine. So it is kind of a scary thing. So let me know in the section below, while we're just chatting, what do you guys think of driving classics today? If you have them, are you ever worried about it? Because I certainly am. Even the frickin' 82 Mercedes diesel, which weighs 8 million pounds and is built better than like a Siberian bank vault. Let's be real. If someone in a Suburban runs that red light, like you're not gonna win that. Let's go into what people are saying. Fixie Clary, back in the 1980s, I had a yellow RC Camaro my uncle gave me that used a little RC controller with an actual steering wheel on it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So there's two different types of controllers. There's the stick kind, and then there's the trigger kind with a little wheel. That's always fun. 2006 Ford GT or Carrera GT? That's music, man. I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of either of those vehicles, if I'm being honest. Look, I'm just gonna put it out there. If you want to talk supercars, I am not the guy to do it, because I really do not know my supercars that well. I don't connect with supercars on the same level I do with old smelly Mercedes. There's just so much money, and I feel like you can never use them to their full potential. But if I had to choose, probably the Carrera GT. I'd love to drive one day, because it's supposed to be kind of one of the last pure driving experiences out of a more modern supercar with the manual transmission. And it's famous for having a traction control system that's not quite there when you need it. What do you recommend to look for in a classic Beetle now that you've owned Felix for a while? Yeah, that's a good question. I recently really got into Volkswagen Beetle since I bought Felix, and the number one thing that keeps coming up and up and up are rust. So I bought the car, and honestly, it's been in storage for a few months just because we've been crazy busy with other stuff, and it's way rustier than I remember. And you can buy anything for a classic Beetle. I mean, anything you could ever imagine. But fixing rust, fixing paint is a real challenge. I know it depends kind of what year you want. So the earlier Beetles are always going to be more desirable, especially going into the 1950s, split windows, oval windows. Mine's actually 71 Super Beetle, and Super Beetles, even though in my opinion they're better because they ride better, they're bigger in the front, they've got the wider track. They're actually a lot less desirable because Volkswagen kind of, in the purest mind, ruined the styling in the front. They kind of flattened out the front trunk. But if I had the choice, if I had, $5,000 and I could either buy a kind of subpar standard Beetle or a nicer Super Beetle, I would go with the Super Beetle all the way, because you still get the air-cooled charm, you still get the fun Beetle experience, and you can typically get them for a little cheaper. Joey's Cleaning Lady, Tommy will graduate to the W124 soon. Yeah, maybe you're right. I missed an opportunity for a pristine 300 TE here in Denver. I had it was pretty high mileage. It had 160,000 miles, but a one-owner car for $2,800. And I tried to snap it up, even just to resell it, because he was well under the asking, and it sold in like an hour. Ever thought about getting a 126? Yeah, I would love a 300 SD. I'm a really huge fan of the old Mercedes diesels, just because they're built so well, and the OM 617s are just incredibly well-made engines. Joey's Cleaning Lady says the W126 is too big. That's true. The Merc tank will run forever. Might as well go with the W140. Yeah, potentially. Fixie Clary, I remember seeing the Tyco Typhoon RC hovercraft back in the 90s, and I wanted one so bad but didn't have the money. That's super funny. I actually, when I was younger, I had some of the RC hovercraft stuff, and it was all pretty crummy. So happy about the bug. Thank you so much. I had a W124. It was awesome. Yeah, when I did that video talking about how the W123 is the best Mercedes ever made, a lot of you guys said that the W124 is even better, and I have no doubt that you're right, because it was newer, just a lot more refined, and arguably just as well made. In the US here, I've noticed it's a lot harder to find the diesel 120. I don't actually know if I've seen a diesel 124. Let me know in the comment section below. Were they imported to the US? Because if so, they are super rare. What happened to the Comanche? Good question. It's still in storage. We haven't actually driven it all that much. We haven't sold it, actually, Ron. We still have it. I think we're going to hold on to it for a little while longer. If I'm being honest, that was a really fun truck to do, and it really kind of struggles off-road. We went a little too big on the tire, and we could put a much bigger bump stop in the rear, and then you run out of articulation. So it's a truck that looks incredible. It's in really great shape. It drives really well on-road, but off-road it's not a whole lot of fun. So we may get the air conditioning fixed and sell it, depending on what my dad wants and what the series wants. Call to Stripes, classics are wonderful, just hate driving them in traffic. Too many people text and drive. That is exactly what I'm talking about. The people that text and drive need to go and be forced to drive a 1962 International Scout 80, because there was no doing anything but driving in that thing when I had it. I'm more worried about it being messed with in parking lots and traffic. Yeah, no one's going to mess with a 71 Super Beetle. Tommy, have you seen that Pebble Beach auction sales volume is down 40% from last year? Some bargains coming up this year. Yeah, I hope you're right. Michael Roberts says MGB. We've got a friend who's huge into the classic car world, and the British cars are actually a pretty good deal right now, because they're just not in the spotlight, and it's all kind of cyclical, the classic car market. But the British sports cars are really just not doing it for people, so you can get pretty decent deals on Bs, even As in some cases. Midgets and Sprites are all pretty good deals. Spitfires are really good, but I've read that the engines are kind of on Spitfires. Ever thought about getting an air-cooled Porsche? I mean, I would love to, but I just graduated college, so I don't have nearly that kind of money. Although, if you've been following the air-cooled 911 market recently, you'll see that it's really dipped super low. So, had a Mercury, Colony Park, got rear-ended twice. The second time a Tercel totaled the south while breaking my tail light. Yeah, And you do see a lot of these comments like that where you've got these old 70s land yachts and they'll total modern cars. But I think the more important point here is, was it IIHS did a crash test a while back between, I think it was like a 59 Impala and a 2016 Impala. Don't quote me on that. And even though the 59 was so much larger in every way, it did not hold up nearly as well in the crash test because you want the vehicle to absorb the impact and not kind of burl its way through, because then more of the forces are transmitted to you, the person in the vehicle. And the thing that really scares me about a lot of the older stuff is the lack of headrests. I mean, getting hit from the rear without headrests seems like a great way to end up with super serious whiplash. Sean says, thinking of getting a W124 soon. I also like the W210s. Yeah, the W210s are cool. They had some pretty serious rust issues, especially in the earlier years. My W124 was a 5-speed manual. That's really rad. Joy's Cleaning Lady, W210 is not good because of the window regulators that are cables. They always fail. Starting in kind of the mid to late 90s through the early 2000s, Mercedes kind of has a reputation of under-engineering their vehicles. So there's kind of a shift in the Mercedes mindset. And you can see it in like my 300D. You get in the car and by no means is it actually all that luxurious, if you know what I mean. I mean, it's loud, it's smelly, it doesn't have power mirrors like any Lincoln or Cadillac you could name in 82. It doesn't have power seats. I mean, it's missing a lot of the convenience features, but the luxury you bought back then wasn't the luxury of getting in and playing with, the fancy quadrasonic cassette player. It was getting in and having it start each and every time. I mean, Mercedes was a 2-word symbolism, in my opinion, for quality. I mean, it's amazing. I had that 78 Lincoln for a long time, and you compare the build quality between the two, and it was just night and day. And I think that's kind of what makes the Mercedes so special. Brian, I let the battery die while in my pool and killed it. Yeah, some of the old RC stuff are crazy expensive. We should probably get to building this because I will just keep blabbing away and nobody wants to hear that. Like, you find some of the Tamiya old 959s, if you can find one in its original box that hasn't actually been built, you'll be spending a couple $1,000s, which is incredible. Michael Roberts. Yes, there are W124s, not that hard to find Hemmings. Okay, there you go. So, I typically don't scan Hemmings that much. I'm more of a Craigslist kind of guy. But yeah, it makes sense. My dad's W210 E200 compressor has been dead reliable. Okay, that's cool. Like I said, I mean, I think it's all down to how well they've been cared for, because even the like W123s, they have a reputation of being completely and utterly dead reliable, but they'll only be dead reliable if you service them and if you maintain them, and that means oil changes pretty frequently. And if you want to know more about like these old Mercedes and servicing, I'm certainly probably not the best person to talk to. Like Mercedes Source is a great option if you're looking for a YouTube channel. Pierre Hidari on YouTube is another one who really knows their Mercedes inside and out. W140s are awesome, but they're expensive and complicated to maintain. That's true. A lot of the newer Mercedes stuff is expensive to maintain. So let's see what we've got going on with the Grasshopper. So try to zoom in so you can get a better look of what's going on out here. So we won't be needing the battery or the charger for quite some time here. We won't be needing the receiver. We will be needing the motor pretty shortly, and we certainly won't be needing our speed control for a while. Fixie Clary says, I'm old enough to remember curb feelers. That's really cool. Who remembers when Radio Shack sold cool RCs? I had a black Phantom twin motor as my first RC car. Thing was an animal back then. That's cool. Okay. Yeah, so I don't know if, in case you care, we can talk about what's been going on with the TFL fleet of vehicles. So I actually sold my Scout a long while back. I had that 1962 International Scout, and there's kind of a story behind that, but essentially what it boils down to is it was a really clean example, and it was pretty much completely useless for Colorado roads with the original 152 4-cylinder. And I didn't want to go, well, first of all, I couldn't afford it, but I didn't really want to go through the process of undoing such an original Scout. And then there was the fact that my parents were absolutely terrified of me driving that thing, and I don't blame them, because with the 4-wheel disc brakes, the absolute lack of power and no seat belts, and a steering column that was ready to impale you at the first collision with a leaf, that car was not going to last long. And you can actually see that's where our little half shaft will come out of. And typically a good tip with these plastic bits, there's a whole bunch of ways to kind of pull them off from their little moldings here. I typically just take a ham-fisted approach because I have no patience to really shave off the little nubs, but the right set of pliers or cable cutters, you can kind of sort of fake it, just like that. Yeah, so the Scout has been sold. It's actually in New Mexico. A gentleman bought it in New Mexico, and I don't know what his plans of fixing it are. The Beetle is mine now, so that's gonna stick around. I don't know if I'll keep doing videos on that car, because not a lot of people seem to care, and I don't blame them, because it's just an old bug. Highboy was a beast. Yeah, Highboy was a beast, actually. However, that car had, or I should say, that truck had a lot of problems. And not actually, I didn't mind the rust. I thought it kind of was a really cool looking patina. It was just everything else that was broken on it. I mean, the engine was starting to go, the transmission was starting to go, the rear end needed a rebuild. But I will say that there's a guy that bought it for me in high school, and he's still driving it with the engine that was bending push rods left and right, and the transmission that was slipping. So, I mean, even an old truck like that in poor condition will run and run and run forever. So this is going to be the inside of our differential. I should probably read the directions, because I haven't built a Grasshopper in quite a while. Where's the XJ? I sold the XJ on Bring a Trailer. That was another one that I had some fun with, but I think it was a yeah, I should explain. Thanks, Sean. An XJ is a Jeep Cherokee. They were built from 1984 through 2001. They're the really square ones. And mine was a 91, a Laredo, in really nice condition. But that was another one where it was in super good shape, but I couldn't really touch anything with it and not feel bad. I really have a hard time modifying and breaking. I shouldn't say breaking things, but ultimately when you're off-roading, you will break stuff. That's in really nice condition to begin with. So that one is also gone. The Felix video is what led me to put Beetles on my classic buy list. Well, good for you. I did not understand the Beetles growing up, and then I drove one, and I was absolutely in love with the old Beetle. And if you've never driven one, definitely try and drive one, because they really are a special and unique experience. Okay, this is the issue with undoing stuff on camera, is you inevitably lose everything. Okay, here we go. Here's my half shafts. Yeah, so if you've never driven an old Beetle, it's kind of, in my opinion, one of the most pure driving experiences you can have anywhere, because they're slow and you have to plan for your accelerations and your turns and your brakes a little bit more than a modern car. You can't just get in and drive it. But if you really drive it, if you really, are willing to rev it out, and if you trust the car enough on, the tiny tires to throw it around the corners, the thing handles amazing, and they're super comfortable. Yet they don't float like the old American cars do. I mean, it really is a cool driving experience. So definitely go out and drive an old Beetle if you can. They built 21 million of the darn things, so I don't think you're going to have a hard time finding them. Okay, cool. So let's see what we got. We've got a large bevel gear going on to the rear drive shaft here. Exciting stuff. See what people are saying. I've never seen an XJ TFL. Yeah, I had one. It was a sorry, I'm reading comments. It was a 91 4-liter Williams Singer. Just an old bug. No, that car's awesome. Them bugs would run on wet leaves if you wanted. That is true, actually. Well, not the leaves part, but they are super dead reliable. And I had a 76 Mercedes SL for about 2 months that I sold quickly because it had some pretty major reliability issues that we could not figure out, not sort out. So I sold it for 35 or 4 grand, something like that, to a gentleman who's willing to take on the project. Let's see. Cruise control on those old Beetles was just a brick on the accelerator, topped out at 70. Mine is actually pretty quick. I mean, even at a mile above sea level, I've gotten mine up to, it'll do 70, 75, no problem. I don't know if I have the balls to do more than like 80, but I think it would do it. This was a cool thing. So through the videos, through, I got an email from a gentleman who saw the videos, and it turns out his dad bought my car brand new back in Boulder back in 1970. Isn't that cool? And it was still beige, and he told me the history of it. So it's been repainted twice. The engine caught fire about 15 years ago. In Volkswagen, they didn't tie the engine serial number to the chassis because they built so many of them. So essentially, if you're trying to date an engine on a Volkswagen, you'll never know if it's original to the car, but you can kind of guesstimate depending on when the serial number lines up with the production build dates. And mine was like the serial number started with BJ and then a bunch of different numbers on the engine, and we were like Googling it, and it popped up as a Brazilian van engine. We're like, well, there's no way it's an engine from a Brazilian van. That just wouldn't make sense. And then the craziest thing happened. The original owner contacted me and said, yeah, there was an engine fire, and we put an engine out of a Brazilian van into this Volkswagen with, get this, 6-to-1 compression. So I had it over at our little 0 to 60 testing, and it was super slow, like over 30 seconds to 60. And then over at Bandamere on the big Beetle day there, another guy in another 71 Super Beetle ran like a, mid-20s in the quarter mile. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense, because he was going slightly above 60 at the end of the quarter. Well, 6-to-1 compression makes total sense now. So the thing is basically just like a tractor engine. I mean, it's got not nearly as much power as it probably should have, but the great news is with that low compression engine is it'll run forever because it's got no strain on it whatsoever. It's just kind of putting along. And I got to figure, I don't know this for sure, but if you're designing a Brazilian engine for a Brazilian van that's designed to work in these harsh conditions, like you'd want to have a lower compression because you're running on maybe worse quality fuel under harsher conditions for longer. So that was pretty cool. I really appreciate that you're such an old soul, Millennial Tommy. Don't find too many of us. Yeah, good for you, Brian. No, I appreciate that. James says, I'm a fan of European sports cars, but even when new, they were expensive. My dad had a friend who bought a TR, I think, 4 and gave it up for a VW. The shocks were $600 to replace. Yeah, the good news is on everything Volkswagen, parts are always super cheap. Jacob said, of course the old Beetle's reliable, there's nothing to break. It's probably true. What RC car is like more in-depth model kits? I might have to get one since I do models on rainy days. Geez, there are so many. If you don't want to go the old school route, to me, like HPI Racing makes some incredible ones. Anything Team Associated, it's going to be really good. Nathan, how long will TFL keep the Model X? Great series of cars, just seem to usually go away fast. That's a good question. We kind of keep the cars until the interest wanes on them. So there's a select few of people like Call to Stripes that are interested in old Volkswagens, but typically after the first 7 or 8 videos, people get tired of them. So we're not going to keep putting that content out if people don't want to watch it. Okay. I am missing many gears and not doing a good job right now. I'm too busy talking about old Volkswagens. I suppose that's okay. 1 second.
Hello?
Yep. Oh, that was funny. Okay, cool. Right. Apologize that I'm back. To be honest, my mom just came home. So I had to make sure she was doing okay. And she's like, "What are you doing?" "I'm doing a live show." Get the real TFL experience here on today's live show. Anyways, let's get back cracking with this. So yeah, we keep the cars until kind of people lose interest in them, which typically happens after 8 or 9 videos. And we have a rule at TFL that we like to keep vehicles affordable for the most part. So typically around 5 to 7 grand is a sweet spot. So like our Volkswagen Touareg was $4,600. The Beetle was $44,000. The E30 was 5.5 grand. We like to keep cars that people can afford, and that people can connect with, because I think it's difficult to connect with a $200,000-$300,000 supercar, and maybe it's just me, but that's kind of how I feel about that whole situation. So right now I'm greasing up the counter gear. Try to get a quick zoom in on that. But I don't know. I mean, you guys are kind of the judges of that, because you're the ones watching it. Would you prefer us to go out and buy a $250,000? Well, we couldn't afford it anyways. But would you prefer that? I mean, I don't know what the heck I would do in a $250,000 Lamborghini or whatever. But put me in a $4,600 Touareg and I'll rip it up. So that's kind of why we do that, and we couldn't come anywhere near affording a vehicle like that. So if you're kind of into TFL, I can kind of explain some of the reasoning behind that. It's a little bit of a challenge when you have a team of people. So a lot of like the YouTubers you might follow, it'll be just like one guy. And my dad founded the company back in 2009. And his deal was it's always about the viewer, and it's always about investing back into the company. So I think there's kind of a perception that, we're getting crazy rich at doing YouTube videos, and I can promise you that's not true. Because instead of going out and buying, stuff like that, my dad always puts it back into employees. So there's actually 8 full-time employees at TFL now. Most of them are videographers behind the scene and editors. We also have a part-time employee, and then we do these project cars, keep them for a few months, and then sell them. And the Model X was crazy because that was like a $86,000 car. I mean, that's a big gamble that people are going to like. But once again, if it was my dad's choice, he would have just kept the Model 3 because he loves the Model 3 way more than the Model X. But he thought that there would be a series potential around it. So we kind of want to keep things fresh and interesting for you. And that's why we rotate through the cars like that. So, what are people saying? Michael, yeah, I like the Touareg too. Oof, don't get me started about that Touareg. I love that car. Nathan Span, Mr. The Time of the Rolling Stones. Joyce Cleaningly, you guys should get a Fisker Karma. Haven't seen many live with everyday videos on that particular model. That might be an interesting one. Yeah, that was a really interesting car. My dad actually went on the press launch of the Fisker Karma. I miss a Fiesta ST, TBH. We don't. One more fleet update question. Did you keep the Wrangler? Also enjoy the project vehicles? No, I actually sold the Wrangler. So I put the money into my Beetle and then the Mercedes 300D. But we now have a long-term Wrangler, a JL. Jacob, if I wasn't a 17-year-old high school senior with no income, I'd definitely try to buy the Touareg off of you. Your mom came home and you're playing with yourself in the basement. That's wise. CN250, very wise. Michael Roberts. Keep the Touareg longer. That's an interesting one. I mean, who would have thought that so many people would be into, an old Volkswagen like that? It's a 15-year-old SUV, right? That nobody bought when it was new, but I'm super glad about it because it really is a fun vehicle to tinker with and to hang around with. So we're definitely going to hold on to that one for probably longer. than most. We also are going to hold on to the Landy because I refuse to let anyone sell that. I really like that Land Rover, and plus we use it as a recovery vehicle. So that's going to stick around. This guy, I'm 1109 4D4. I'm sorry, Derek. 1109 D4 Derek. I'm not into supercars. Well, I love the classic ones. F40 Countach. Yeah, well, there is no chance we'll be getting into those. What is your favorite car that's gone through TFL over the years? It's got to be close between the Volkswagen and the Land Rover Discovery 2 we have. I really like both of those because I kind of like vehicles that kind of had a bad rap when they were new, and are, underappreciated. And I think both the Volkswagen and the Land Rover have a horrendous reputation, and they're both really good cars that just get absolutely destroyed because people online say they're not reliable. But we've had super good luck with both of those. I'm really into the whole off-road world too, and they both are really pretty phenomenal off-road. I actually, how do I put this without being absolutely destroyed online? I really liked the Aztec, kind of for the same reason, because it was so hated. But the Aztec was a car that was way ahead of its time in a lot of ways, because it had a really kind of fantastic use of space. You get into an Aztec and you're just amazed by how much rear seat legroom there is, how much just size there is for stuff and for life. And the styling, I'm not even going to get into the styling because everyone has their own opinion on the styling of the Aztec, but I think if that car were to come out today, people wouldn't be upset about it, because that kind of stacked headlight turn signal design is something you see all the time in modern vehicles. It was just super ahead of its time. I like the cooler that was the center armrest. I like the air compressor in the trunk for bicycles and tires and the like. What did I screw up here? Oh, wait, I'm using I need a metal bushing, not a plastic one. Yeah, so the Aztec is one I kind of miss a little bit, and for $1,500, you can't go wrong with them. The 3.4 is it's okay. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't call it a performance monster, but it'll run a decent amount of time if you keep up with head gaskets and such. So, what else is everyone saying here? You should buy the Touareg when TFL's finished with it. Trust me, Brandon, I have thought about that a lot because I truly love that car. If you ever have a chance to drive an early Touareg, definitely do it. If you ever have a chance to own an early Touareg, hey, it might be worth the gamble. A V10 Touareg would be awesome to dispel the myths of unreliability. Yeah, that is a potential. The issue with the V10 Touaregs is, in the Touareg community, people say that they've had theirs for a long time with no issues. But if you read a lot of the reports, the V10 Touaregs just had kind of some fundamental design flaws with them. So the turbos on the V10s are super fragile. The drivetrain really couldn't keep up with 550 pound-feet of torque. Okay, we should probably talk about that. Well, we can go down the Touareg rabbit hole real quickly. Touaregs are separated into 3 generations: T1, T2, and T3. We have a 2004, which would have been a T1. It's kind of the old roundy one. And there were 3 engines here in the U.S., specifically the U.S. There's a 3.2-liter V6, about 240 horsepower, 4.2-liter V8, 310 horsepower, and then a 5-liter twin turbocharged V10 diesel with 550 pound-feet of torque, an absolute monster. And the diesel is the one you lust after, but the V8 is the one you want. Just because anything on the V10 diesel is an engine out job. So for example, like an alternator is first of all, they're water-cooled alternators on the Touareg, but it was like a $3,000 to $4,000 job because you have to pull the engine. Typically, if you're doing an alternator, you do a lot of other stuff at the same time. So yeah, I mean, if you're willing to put up with it, you're gonna get an incredible vehicle. But you kind of just have to either bite the bullet or or move away from that. I really like that Jeep pickup, but don't see it much. Yeah, Trucker Todd, that was an interesting one. We kind of gauge how much people like it based on viewership. And our first Jeep challenge was with I think it was an '02 TJ, the little white four-cylinder. And that one did really well, and we thought the MJ would do well, the Comanche with the new Gladiator, but I think it's just a little bit too niche where people don't quite understand what it is. So there's not much interest in that one. And the videos were extremely expensive to produce. So there's a really devoted group of people that are into the Comanche, but it's not nearly as big as the audience for something like a Wrangler. William, call my newest vehicle is an '03 Avalanche, runs great no matter what. Avalanche should be a cool project too. Fixie, I've seen a few Touaregs around here. Have you considered doing a Project Muscle Car, like how you built up the TJ Wrangler, but with an older Mustang or Camaro? Yes, we could look into that. We can run that past a team. Aztec Love, that's funny. I'd love to go wheeling with your Touareg and my lifted WK Grand Cherokee. Yeah, sure, let's do it. I think you'll be surprised on how the Touareg does. Anything will run forever if you plug enough money into it. Yeah, I agree. And I read a comment on one of the videos, and I think they're pretty spot on. If you're going to go out and buy, let's say for the sake of comparison, like an '04 Touareg with the V8, you're going to find them for anywhere between like $3,000 and $5,000. But you can't go in with that expectation that that's what it's actually going to cost you, because it's going to cost you more in maintenance. It's just an extremely over-engineered vehicle with a lot of kind of potentials for failure. So if you go into a Touareg expecting to spend over the course of 7 to 10 years, maybe let's say $15,000, you'll be much better off, because realistically it could cost you $1,000 to $2,000 a year in maintenance. And if you're saying right now $15,000 over the course of 10 years for a Touareg, that's crazy. Well, you may be right, but think about this. You could go out and buy yourself a base model Corolla, right, for $15,000-16,000, and it's going to be dead reliable and never leave you stranded and never break. But also, a Corolla doesn't have air suspension that raises from 6 to 12 inches. It doesn't have a rear locker. It doesn't have 310 horsepower. It doesn't have 5-position heated seats in 4 of the 5 seats. It doesn't have the crazy, wild, self-leveling headlights. It doesn't have, well, it might, but the base model wouldn't have navigation. I mean, it wouldn't have the exceptional leather. So you're going to pay more for a Touareg over the course of a longer period, but I mean, I think it's worth it because it's such an amazing car. So go in with the mindset that you're not buying an incredible deal for $4,600. Go into the mindset that over the course of my ownership, I'm going to have to probably put 10, 12, 15 grand into the thing. And if you're willing to spend that on an 04 Volkswagen, go for it, because you'll be incredibly surprised. If it's not a 94 Silica, it's an endless money pit. Yeah, I'd like to see the 94 Silica do half of what the Touareg can do. Get a Lamborghini LM002. I know a guy that has one. The ship has sailed on those for price a long time ago. Tommy, what's your dream garage? 4-car dream garage? That's a good question. 4-car dream garage, it has to be probably my 300D. I love those old Mercedes. I'd love an old CJ5 or CJ7. Probably one of the AMC years, maybe with the oh god, I'm blanking on it. The 340 cubic inch V8, the AMC. Let me know in the comment section below. So V8 powered CJ7, 300D. I probably have to have an old Beetle in there. If it was a dream garage, it'd have something more desirable than Felix. But 4th car, I think you'd have to have something to zip around when in a just everyday environments. And I really did like the Model 3 a lot before I ruined it. So I think the Model 3 would be on that list as well. Because I am a classic car fan at heart, but that Model 3 is one impressive automobile, and I think kind of love it or hate it, but Tesla has been largely politicized in the market for vehicles. I mean, you can't buy a Tesla without people screaming, political views at you. But here at TFL, we don't look at Teslas like that. We look at Teslas like any other car. I mean, how does it perform as a vehicle? And if you look at it in that metric, it's It's pretty amazing. Oh, Joey's Cleaning Lady, 304, thanks. I knew there was a 4 in there somewhere. So he wants cool, underappreciated cars that failed on launch. Sure, that sounds great. No, I don't want crap cars. I want cars that have a bad reputation but are actually great. I mean, there were a lot of cars that had a bad reputation but were actually bad as well. I'm not interested in those. But yeah, like our Discovery has been pretty freaking great, I have to say. It's got the best seating position of any car you'll ever drive. And it is super enjoyable. I came from Peugeot Renault family, so we know something about spending $5,000 a year to keep your car running. That's funny. I'd love actually an old Peugeot, like 404, 504. Those are another vehicle that'll run for absolutely ever. Okay, cool. That was step 1. You're welcome. 225 Oddfire, yeah. That was a cool engine. I think that was that Dauntless V6, right? That was an old Jeep engine. Hey, Tommy, would you travel to St. Louis to film a video with my 62 Chrysler Crown convertible? Wow, what a cool car. Yeah, we could look into doing that. It's all about kind of managing expenses because, you know, we're at the end of the day trying to run a business. But yeah, I mean, I think if we're ever in St. Louis in the area, we certainly could look into doing that. I think that'd be really fun. Need to come and swap the disco when the engine finally gives, or make the driver black. Go with a 4BT. Yeah, that's a good point. So the Discovery 2s had a 4.6 liter V8 that's known for frying itself, and it's kind of tricky to engine swap a Discovery 2 because by 2004 there's a lot of computer controlled bits. I mean, there's something like 7 ECUs in the darn thing. So if I were to do like an old Cummins swap, I'd probably go for Discovery 1, which was discontinued, I think, in 96 here in the US. That would be the one I would go for. But the 4BT is certainly an interesting engine. Frickin' expensive as heck, though. I mean, crazy, crazy, crazy expensive. Yeah, once again, I mean, the Discovery 2 is a little bit like the Touareg, where it just gets crapped on online. Except it's got arguably a better reputation for off-road ability, which it probably deserves, because it is pretty amazing off-road. I'd be interested in finding a mint Peugeot MI16. Yeah, me too. That's for sure. What if TFL Classics had a classic car meet? That'd be cool. The issues were in Colorado, which is kind of far from a lot of you guys, unfortunately. But yeah, I would absolutely love to do that. I think that would be a real riot. So I guess we can continue with the fleet update because some people seem to like that. We have the Land Cruiser, so we turned a 2008 TRD, or 2008 200 series Land Cruiser into what we call the TFL Pro, so TRD Pro kind of, I don't want to say imitation, but how Toyota should have done it, if we're being honest. That one's another great vehicle that we're probably going to hold on to for a while because it's just so solid. It's so incredibly comfortable. It's so good off-road. I say that now, but wait till gas gets expensive and ask me again whether or not we're going to keep that, because just like the Touareg and the Discovery, it is quite thirsty. So I'm putting the small bevel gears into the differential spur gear right now, which sounds about as exciting as it looks, but in case you're interested. So these are like the little spider gears within the transmission that make it all kosher and go around turns. Have you ever tried drag racing something like a Tesla or Rebel versus one of your RC cars, since the brushless ones can go so fast? Yeah, we did try it once with a certain manufacturer, and they were not pleased with that video. This was a long, long time ago. And actually, people really do not like the RC content that we put out, so I'm probably not going to do that. Because they say it's kid stuff, and I'm like, yeah, it's kid stuff, but it's fun. I mean, look at this. I'm greasing up a little tiny gear right now and putting it in a slightly bigger gear. How fun is that? To think I could be playing video games right now. Ugh, this is way better, if not quite greasy. Okay, what's going on? Road trip to Colorado it is. Scotty Kilmer told me my 2010 Santa Fe with 136,000 miles is going to explode. Yeah, well, we drive a 04 Discovery that never gets maintained, and it is just killing it. I strongly do believe that a lot of reliability is down to how the vehicle was kept. So, for example, like the Touareg really runs beautifully, but if you look at the owner's the service history, it's been kept its whole life, and I think kind of cars are living, breathing creatures in a lot of ways, and if you treat them well, they're going to treat you well. I say that right after I say we don't upkeep our Discovery, but it's true. I mean, you got to drive them, and the second you let them sit, that's when things all go to crap. Peugeot 505 is one of the most comfortable cars ever. Oh, Citroën DS is number one. I totally agree. I had a kick in high school where all I wanted out of life was a Citroën DS. And I knew a guy that is the premier fixer in pretty much the United States of Citroën DS's. And I could never make it work. And now they're expensive, so I missed the boat on them, which is a darn shame. But I'd still love to own one day. I think if I had 5 cars, it would certainly be in my 5-car garage. Something like a 87 to 88. This is one Titanic fan. 87 through 88, Pontiac Fiero, Pontiac Mira, and Pontiac. Okay, cool. Yeah, he's a Pontiac fan. I actually think a Fiero would be a really cool one. I found a pretty good one. All my dad do, just in case you're wondering, so my dad is Roman, if you don't know. All we do all the time, whenever we're not working, is just scan Craigslist. And I found a pretty darn clean Fiero a while back. It was a 2nd gen. It may have even been like an 88, which I think is the last year. Don't quote me on that, but it was a really pretty cool car. I think that would be a fun one to do as well, actually. SM is better than DS. Joey's cleaning lady, I will fight you on that, because that Maserati engine was kind of garbage. Granted, the DS engine, the 4-banger, wasn't that great, but the SM V6 was just a nightmare. It's been a while since I played with my Traxxas Slash. Yeah, me too. We even have the cool Raptor one. What the heck? What am I doing? I grew up a family of mechanics and gearheads, so I work on my own stuff. 505 uses some ridiculous French injection pump. Yeah, a lot of like the, especially if you get into the diesel stuff, I think those were all mechanical injection cars, and the injection pumps on those are absolutely incredible. If you ever have a chance, one of our favorite shows is actually Wheeler Dealers. They did an episode around a 300 TD, which is a station wagon diesel, and Ant took apart the diesel injection pump, and it's just nuts. I mean, it's full of pistons and little valves. It's like its own miniature engine within the actual engine bay. So super cool pieces of tech. I would for sure screw that up if I opened it. If I was to go French, I'd go with the Fossil Vagel 2. The most beautiful car ever made, in my opinion. That's not a bad one. I saw a Fiero on Auto Trader for 600 grand. James, really? Who's selling a Fiero for 600 grand? TR6 for me, hard to find a good one here. Yeah, I always forget that too. I mean, we're in Colorado and we're pretty lucky, and a lot of our cars stay pretty decent, because up until recently we didn't use salt on our roads, and now that unfortunately is changing. Bummer. But yeah, I mean, finding a decent TR6, is getting tricky. My dad had a buddy in high school or actually college rather, that had a bunch of TR7s. He had a Lotus Elan, and boy, does he have some stories around those cars. I'll tell you what. My hands are super greasy, and I'm trying to zoom out on the camera. This is not a very professional gig. I'm sorry. My Z24 engine is running perfectly still after 30 years. I think the old girl's a classic now. Yeah, I think you're right. MR2 Turbo is old enough to be classic now. Yeah, for sure. I really hate people that are car snobs. I mean, if you want your car to be a classic, I say go for it. You know, I even think stuff like early 2000s can be considered a classic, especially like the old GTOs of that era. They're just rare and they're cool. I mean, if it's different and you don't see it every day, why not? For sure. Hey, what happened to the Lucky, the International Scout? Yeah, I talked about that a little earlier. I ended up selling it just because it was a little bit unusable for modern day roads, especially at altitude, and it was also just incredibly unsafe. Okay, getting there. Now I need B3. The cool thing about these old Tamiya kits is they are all labeled, so I'm assuming it's going to be on here. Is this B? Yeah, it is B. So they've got little number stamps, and then they're also actually numbered, so you know exactly what you're pulling off of and where. So this is the oil cap on a on a Tamiya grasshopper, which is pretty funny stuff. In reality, it's just kind of a little decorative piece, but hey, I can't complain. So now we have to actually break out another tool. And by tool, I mean Phillips screwdriver. And we're looking for a BB1, and they even give you little guides here. I think the BB1 is a 3 by 12 millimeter, which it is. Okay. TR8 equals overweight. Ooh. TR6 or Stag? The Stag had that crap engine. I wouldn't go for a Stag. I really like the Rover V8s, and British Leyland decided, no, we're not going to use the brilliant Rover V8. We're going to put 2 Spitfire engines together and call that a day. I'm like, guys, what are you doing? TR8 was really cool. I agree. About a 94 F-150 with a 300 inline 6. Great truck. Properly brilliant truck. Good for you. Make sure I'm not screwing everything up right here. No, I'm good. With 300 inline 6 for $500, my daughter and I fixing it up. That's awesome. That's really great. Over the next 10 years for her when she gets her license. I wish I had learned how to fix cars at a young age. Unfortunately, I just don't think I'm really blessed with that skill set. And I mean, this stuff is fun to do, but I'm not sure I'm good enough to really get into it. I'd love to find like someone who kind of mentor me in how to do it, because it really does interest me, but it's kind of a time and space thing as well. Can anyone tell me what he's building? Yeah. This is a 1980s RC car. It's called a Tamiya Grasshopper. Next project for TFL, turn a Silicon to rally car. I'm in Western New York and used to play a mechanic before I started paving. What an awful job here with all the snow. Yeah, I can't blame you. Trucks and campers. What happened to Mike? He moved to San Francisco to pursue other stuff. What do you use to insure your classics? Do you use a specialist insurance like Haggerty or just your standard provider? I use State Farm Classics. And for like my 300D, I'm still on my parents' policy, which is great. But I pay seriously like $23 every, I think, 3 months for that Mercedes. It's awesome. It is really great. But we actually have used Haggerty for like, what do we have under? I think our E30 is under the company name Haggerty. And they're pretty good. Like, I gotta say, they were pretty decent to work with. They got our, or Touareg's also Haggerty, I think. They got our policy done super fast. But yeah, like, we've had, with State Farm on some of our classics, if you don't register it or insure it specifically as a classic, it can be crazy expensive. What happened with the green truck? Great question. Yep, the green truck is in Canada with Stephen Elmer, so he's had some issues with it. Just kind of working out, fuel injection stuff. We had the same issues when we sold it to him. Of course, we told him about it. But yeah, he's still got that truck. He loves it. Yeah, that's right. He actually just bought a set of Cooper tires for it. Or, I should say, Cooper, full transparency, Cooper provided us a set of tires for it. So he is going to test the beans off of those. I can guarantee that. What? Why am I having BA1? Why am I having such a hard time finding that? Oh, yeah, sure. Let's just drop it on the ground. Liability only. Yeah, typically, for insurance. That could come back and bite me one day, but we'll see. When will you guys sell the Touareg? Or will it be a long-time TFL vehicle? Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit. I really think that vehicle is going to stick around a little bit because there seems to be a surprising amount of interest around it. And I think the whole team just kind of, well, I shouldn't say the whole team. The vast majority of the team really likes the car. So probably hold on to it. Have you ever gone wheeling in the southeast? I have not. I've never gone wheeling in the south actually at all. I'd love to, though. It's a super, here we go. It's a super, super different environment than what we have here in Colorado. So yeah, I think that'd be super fun. We mostly do our off-roading in Colorado because we're here, if that needed to be said. But it's true. And it's just, it's kind of tricky and expensive to get elsewhere. But I would love to try other places. And of course, we do a lot of stuff out in Moab. If you've seen the videos, you probably have seen a lot of stuff out there. Anyways, sorry this is probably not as interesting as I expected it to be, but that's probably okay. I'm trying to find this little dowel. I can't do it. I can crank through this car in like an hour and a half when I'm not talking. The second I start talking, it all goes to heck. Anyways, yeah. Is there anything else anyone really wants to talk about? We are having quite the challenge here in the Colorado region with some of the off-roading stuff. Because a lot of the best off-roading here, oh, here we go, is above 10, 12, 13, 14,000 feet. Well, 14,000 is a little high, but 12, 13,000 feet, which means it snowed over for a lot of the year. And this year, we've had a horrendous winter. And for example, like one of the premier trails is Black Bear Pass up in Uray. And it just opened. And then I saw today that someone had rolled a 4Runner on the pass, and now it's closed again. So, you know, typically in these trails, they'll open end of July, but now they're opening end of August. And they will stay open until end of September. And then they'll close again because of snow. What's the next truck project? I don't know. What should the next truck project be? Like we say, we really don't have much say in this race. What do you guys want to see? Because once again, we're not really buying these cars for us. We're buying them for you guys. So what would you like to see? I've got some ideas in my head. We're talking about doing a overland build on an Explorer Sport Track. That's kind of got myself and my dad pretty excited right now. But not wed to that. You know, we kind of like the unusual stuff a little bit. So the Sport Track, I think, would be pretty fun. But yeah, what do you want to see? Typically, like I said, we do... Well, I shouldn't say we. I like the older stuff. I know my dad is looking at some of the newer stuff, too. So we've got some exciting stuff planned. Potentially. Depends. We just drove the new Sierra... GMC Sierra 1500 diesel. And let me tell you what, I can't tell you how it drives because that's embargoed, but that is one we're looking at going forward. We're looking at maybe doing like a Ford Tremor. Maybe doing like a 7.3 liter gas Tremor. Maybe a diesel Tremor. I don't know. We have the Ram right now, so I think we're probably going to try something new. Classic tow truck build, that would be cool. There's a big time aftermarket truck modifier in my town that puts lifts, bumpers, and ETC and brand new trucks for dealerships nationwide. You all should come visit. Yeah, that'd be cool. There's a lot of those, actually. It's a huge business model now, is these dealers that are doing these like factory builds. Okay, I think it's time to button up the gearbox. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. It's going to be quite riveting. Ready? Make sure it all lines up correctly. Let's see, I think I put in... Oh, no. Good news. So now... Oh, yeah. Like sandpaper. Brandon says, yes, Tremor 4.3. For the classic channel, please do a British car. XJ6 would be awesome. That would be awesome. We could look into doing an XJ6, I guess. That sounds terrible. And the bushing just fell out. Okay, well. In the pursuit of field expediency, I'm just going to slather up these gears just a little more. We'll call it a day. What's the I can't tell you how it drives embargo thing? Yeah, I can explain that. So when a manufacturer puts on a new press drive, they invite out members of the media to test the vehicle, but they can't invite all of us out at the same time, so they have to stagger us over the course of a week or 2 weeks, and they want everybody to have a chance to write what they want to say, but also feel like they don't have to be in the first wave to get their story out first. So what they'll do is they'll usually put on a driving impressions embargo. And what that means is you can talk about anything on the vehicle except how it drives. And then that allows everybody, whether you come in on Monday or Friday, to get their story together, and then no one feels like they're being cheated out of the opportunity to publish. So that's where that comes from. And we typically try to get a pre-embargo video out. So like if you go over to TFL Truck, we have a video out on the HD Sierra. And we do that because we want to fill you guys in on what's going on in the automotive world, and we want to show you new and cool stuff, so you don't have to wait for it, really. So typically in these programs, we will show up, drive the vehicle, shoot in the day, and then stay up super late editing, which is a hugely fun deal. Okay. Transmissions together, and I just gotta screw it all together. Oh. Yeah, Dan Atkinson has a Ranger now. Dan Atkinson's a great guy. We love working with him. Congratulations on your Ranger, 19 Ranger. Turn a Ford E-Club 450 into an Overlander. That'd be pretty cool. There's a company called Quigley that does four-wheel drive conversions on the E-Series of vans. I almost bought a Sport Track. I really like the truck, just couldn't find the right deal when they were new. They were an interesting truck. Kind of in the line of the Avalanche, but at the same time, not nearly as kind of out there, because the Avalanche was pretty bizarre in its construction and its design and all that. So what I'm trying to do is get these two sides of the transmission casing to mate properly, because if you don't, the gears will never sync up. Okay. Transmission done. Let me try something. Doesn't seem happy. Which vehicle do you regret selling the most? I don't know. I don't try to regret selling anything. I think it's kind of a pain in the butt when you're living in regret all the time. The one I probably miss the most is we had a first generation RX-7, which you may recall if you're a super TFL fan, because not a lot of people tuned into that series. But yeah, we had a first gen RX-7 that was just truly one of the best cars I've ever driven. Once again, you know, $5,000 car, but it was just so perfect. Okay, cool. Is that better? Yeah, feels a little better. Okay, cool. We bolt that up before it falls apart again. Okay, great show, Tommy, but duty calls, not really a great show, but thanks for tuning in. Like I mentioned before, caregivers' work is never done. Good night, guys. Yeah, I think we got the transmission all bolted together. I suppose this is a good time to maybe close it up. Anyways, thank you for watching. I don't know if you enjoyed this. Let me know if you did. Just trying something new. But, yeah, I hope you guys have a good night, and gals, of course. And maybe we'll try to make this a weekly thing, and you'll see this little car come to life. And next time I promise to do a better job of actually building it and not just sitting here. Okay,